G'day fans of the NPL, it is the Verd, back with you again, and welcome here to Week 3 Power Rankings. Obviously, I am not alone though. I am joined once again by my partner in crime, Phalop. Hello, friend.
Hello, man. It's good to be back.
Yes, it has been a bit of a while, and boy
Yeah.
oh boy, it's not getting any easier for us guys. This week
No,
again,
no, definitely not. They are not making it easy.
they are not making it easy at all. And a lot of other curveballs this week, a lot of, I guess, surprising results, and then some results not as surprising. But without further ado, I think we will crack into this one. Now,
Yeah.
I feel like what people need to understand with our rankings before we actually get into them completely is the fact that we ourselves do not feel that any of these teams are bad. Like in any other league, we feel all of these teams could perform exceptionally well. It's just, unfortunately, in a league like this, you are going to have people that perform really well, and you're going to have people that are just having rough seasons. Doesn't mean they're necessarily a bad player. You know, it happened with Riz. Like, Riz won the TBU, but then had a really up and down NPL season the same time round. So it's just a matter of perspective. So just because they're doing bad in here doesn't mean they're bad overall. So don't take it that way, please, guys, because we know that everybody in this league is a phenomenal battler, and it's just, yeah, some of them, and the ones I guess we're going to highlight today again, well, I'm definitely going to highlight are the two that I'm going to highlight are the Vancouver Stealth Rocks and the Jersey Dwebbles. So basically, when it comes to these guys, I think they're playing alright. Like, they've got decent teams, and they're both very good battlers. I think Carney's been a bit unlucky with some rolls and a bit of hacks and whatnot, which is never really good for somebody to have to deal with, but he is competent enough. I know he's been making some really good plays, and I can see him in the future doing better. And Cloud as well, you know, he really brought it to Anthony. Granted, Anthony didn't probably play to the best of his ability, but Cloud was in control of that game for a while, was making the right plays. I think potentially that turn with the Beedrew, or sorry, with the Celebi in against the Reg Steel, and also choosing to run U-turn and baton pass was a little bit questionable. I kind of get it for momentum purposes, but at the same time, if you had baton pass, you already had the momentum purpose. So I think, you know, he definitely could have done that differently. And then also at the end, it was just unfortunate that he got paralyzed with the Thunderbolt. But I do think these two guys are two people that will definitely be able to, you know, they might be able to turn things around this season, but as it stands right now, you know, they're just having a bit of a bad season, and it happens. It's not like, I don't think it's going to be super detrimental to either of them. I think they're both phenomenal battlers, and they'll be able to bounce back. But how do you feel about these guys?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I will also talk about Carney shortly. I will talk about Cloud a bit later because I have him a bit higher than you. But for Carney, yeah, as you say, you can see that he's slowly getting adjusted to this league and just all the great players we have. And I think this season he will constantly improve, and he will definitely get his first win sometime soon. And this week it was a bit unfortunate match, but it was mostly, I think, when you looked at his team and then you looked at Merc's biggest threat, Megalatios, and just most of his mons didn't have any coverage for it. And I think this was maybe a bit of his prep that fell short, because like he had AV Tapu Bulu, didn't even have Mega Horn to hit Megalatios really hard. Like the calm mindset with Rue's dual stab that now broke his entire team. It was, yeah, when you don't bring anything to really break the mon, yeah, it will just tear to your team. And I also didn't really understand the Kobo Berry Conkeldurr. Yes, he said it was for the flying mons, but there was like Swallow and Togekiss. Swallow is already hit hard by like Mach Punch. Togekiss, I won't even try to run a Kobo Berry against this, because there's like a 60% chance you still get flinched, but it's just me. But other than that, yeah, it was just a fairly short game, so it was not really that you could say that much about it more.
Yeah, the one thing that just annoyed me about the battle, if anything as a nitpick, was the fact that Carney has one of the best Mega Latios shakes in the game in Mega Aggron on his roster, and chose not to bring it, which was very surprising. Even if you were trying to predict your opponent not to bring it, the fact that it still walls things like Togekiss as well, even though Togekiss does get Flamethrower and Aura Sphere, you're still being able to take it and can pretty much Oko right back. I feel Just
Yeah.
not bringing that Pokemon in general was pretty surprising. Also, it deals with Swellow. It resists both the Swellow stabs. Swellow doesn't get access
Yeah.
to close combat like Staraptor does, so
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know why he didn't bring it, but that's okay. He'll improve. But we do have Cloud in this group of 4 here, so if you would like to talk about him a bit, feel free.
Okay, yeah, sure then. Yeah, I put him just above the Braviaries and the Bayern Munich. This was because all teams have lost this week, and for the Braviaries and the Bayern Munich, this was like the first week as their with their new teams. So I put Cloud just above them because just this week I saw real potential for Cloud this season, and I saw him improve, and I saw him put like the number 1 team I have for like several weeks. I had Anthony or had Anthony number 1, and Cloud really pressured him, and Anthony was, and this is true, Anthony didn't play to his full capabilities, but even then Cloud just with a little bit of help and just talking to Manny Brolick a bit with his team building, and then in the match he knew what he had to do, and like he almost put out the win. And just there was like a 50-50 with the SD Celebi, that's for sure. It was like a 50-50. If you SD twice and he doesn't go Kyurem, you win the game. If you SD twice, he goes Kyurem, you like auto lose. So that's true. That's just how the game can come down to it. That's how close this game was. There's just one play, and Cloud has said it himself. He should have definitely trapped the Gardevoir when he could with the Mega Beetle. He had Pursuit on it. It was there mainly for like Mew and the Gardevoir. He could have done it, and that would maybe have clinched in the game potentially late game of Toxapex. Potentially not, but still, I think Cloud played a really solid game. He made some aggressive plays, and he really put Anthony on his backseat and just really fell short at the end. But yeah, I can definitely. I thought he was like the best of the losing teams right now.
Yeah, no, he did play a lot better than he has in the first 2 weeks, and it was really good to see. Then again, like he's always made some good plays. I think his issue has been, and a lot of coaches suffer from this. Like it's not just him. Is that when it comes to those big turns and those big plays to make, he just always unfortunately seems to make the wrong decision. We had Trev do that a couple of times earlier in the season as well, so he's not alone in that bracket. I do think he is definitely improving. Why I couldn't, though, put him above Baltimore or Bayern is the fact that, you know, this early in the season, probably one of the biggest factors to a team right now is how many wins they have. Like some teams are 3-0, some teams are 2-1, and we've got 2 teams right now that are 0-3. And as much as I want to try and say, well, you know, they can bounce back, the reality is right now they're currently at the bottom of the Braviaries and the Bayern Munich. Yes, both coming in already with a win under their belts and then losing this week, but there is still the fact that they do have a win, which means they're already 1 game ahead of those guys below. And it's not the only way that I look at these rankings. Obviously, Baltimore did get pretty... it was a 50-50 really as to why Baltimore kind of lost, because, you know, it was down to whether he clicked HB Ice or he clicked Thunderbolt. Unfortunately, Moxie clicked Thunderbolt, and Toad took complete advantage of this. But I think that, you know, if he had his time again, he'd make the better play. And I think Shardy, although he did lose his first game in the NPL, I mean, it's always going to be very hard when your first game in the NPL is against Gypsy King. Like, it's never going to be an easy game. And I think, you know, it was closer than a lot of people thought. He did a really good job in that matchup, and as much as I feel that both of these guys could be below Cloud, I think, you know, there is still... I also feel you have to factor in that, you know, all 3 of these guys went up against pretty much the top 3 guys in... Well, I wouldn't... Like, Gypsy's not ranking-wise up there, but battling-wise is well up there as one of the top 3, along with, I'd say, Togue and Anthony. So those 3 played the top 3, and so it's very hard to kind of distinguish between, like, all that, because they all had very tough matchups, very good battlers they were up against. So I feel that they can all, like, all the bottom 4 can improve and do better, and I'm sure most of them will. But for now, I think, you know, record and performance-wise, just they have to stay down there. But is there anything you want to touch on from Bayern Munich or Baltimore from their games?
Yeah, you pretty much covered most things. It was indeed for Blake. It was just the one play with the Ditto. he made the wrong call, and that really costed him. He lost really big time to Toke, which brought a really great Thunder Starion set that really broke his team apart. And it will definitely be hard for him to bounce back after such a rough loss, but I think he definitely has the potential to do so. He has already won, not with this team, but he has already won an NPR match the week before. And yeah, with Bayern Munich, they had a really rough matchup against Gypsy, and Gypsy just brought like his A game. He had fantastic prep, and I will go over this a bit more when we cover him in the power ranks. But yeah, yeah, the one thing that was really nice to see from Shadow was the live up trick room Borgen 2 that was with the download to build. It was quite a heat set, and it did put in some work for him. It got him some kills, but it was unfortunately just not enough to break Gypsy.
For sure. One thing we won't really touch on though, guys, that has happened here is there's been a lot of trades and transactions. If you want to know about these trades and transactions, go back and watch the podcast video after this one to understand, because like there's a lot of transactions that went on. It definitely does. It doesn't change our rankings on teams, but heading into the next week, definitely there are a bit different expectations of teams. So I'm not really going to get into that too much, but definitely go check all of those out just as a side thing. But moving on to the next group of 4. We have a lot of similar teams. We actually have the same group of 3 together and then one different one at the top there. But would you like to talk a little bit about the Chicago Bears and how they went this week?
Yeah, sure. So this week, let's just let it just keep it short. Razor had an off week. We all have one of those weeks that maybe it's just a prep, maybe it's just you didn't have enough time and you just had the combination of the prep plus the match just didn't work out. You wanted to. He knows that this was like one of maybe his worst performance he had ever had. He will bounce back from this, and I think that's just it for this week.
Yep. I won't really touch any more on that. You're completely right. But moving on from that, I have Dallas in the same spot as Razor, and then Razor one above. I think that the thing that happened with Dallas, this is more just from an overall looking point. So basically, I was assisting Dallas a little bit with his team building process, and in the matchup against Riz, I was saying, Toxic Spikes on Weezing wouldn't be the worst thing, because he had obviously the spinner in Donphan, but he had a Colbur Decidueye to counter that, and I believe he had a Defog in I forget its name, but he had a Defogger as well, and I just didn't see him bring in the Defogger, so I was like, T-Spikes would be nice, because I can wear down things like Necrozma, which can be annoying. Like, overall, it's a really nice plane. He's like, I'm going to go with Clear Smog. Now, Clear Smog is by no means a bad move to chuck on Weezing. It's, good in a lot of situations, but against Riz's team, it would only have been there for potential power-up Kangaskhan, which, is obviously a very niche set, especially in a matchup where you're up against a guy that has, things like Landorus. Like, I can see Power Up Punch being there, but if that's a Rocky Helmet Landorus, it's just a bad time for you.
Yeah.
So,
Indeed.
I think that, overall, Toxic Spikes would have been a lot better, and I think that was just... The reason why I had him below Razor is that I think I already had Dallas below Razor, and I didn't think Razor... Razor had an off week, but I don't think he played necessarily bad enough to warrant him being put lower than Dallas. I think both of them just had a bit of an off week, because Dallas did play quite well against Riz, but I think... not really looking at the big picture and focusing on the main, I guess, not really the main ways to win, but like the better moves that work better in the matchup, because Clear Smog is a great move, guys, but in the matchup against Riz, it probably wasn't as beneficial to Dallas as the Toxic Spikes were, because it was a turn I think it was in against Tornadus, and he had one chance to get off a hit. Also, the other thing was... he didn't play around Sylveon as well as he could have, since he had a Weezing. He could have switched in Weezing against the Sylveon. Granted, if it was Specs, it would have hurt, but Weezing does naturally outspeed Sylveon, I believe. I think it has base 65 and Sylveon's base 60, so he could have then just got off Pain Splits, or he could have gone for those Toxic Spikes. If he had 2 layers up of Toxic Spikes, or even just 1 layer, it would have limited Necrozma's recovery. It would have weakened a lot of his other threats. He had no way to get rid of those hazards either, because there was no actual spin on Donphan, funnily enough. But even if there was, Decidueye blocked it, so... I think, having that, plus the fact that it would have been the combination of Spirit Shackle plus Toxic Spikes with the Decidueye would have been really, really nice in that matchup.
Yeah.
I'm not going to dwell on it anymore. He knows that he can definitely improve from there, but that was just something I noticed that kind of was just a little bit of a downer. But moving on, obviously you talk about... Actually, no, if you want anything you want to add about Swampert, since you have him a little bit higher than I do?
Yeah, that was a little bit higher. I thought, but it might be that I did that he didn't even touch on it in the video. But I thought he had these bugs on this set, but he just made the wrong call on when he was in on the tornadoes, and I thought he just should have set them up right there. But now I know he didn't have them, and as you said, they were definitely really nice, especially also with the Mega Gang Scan. As you know, the Wish Chat Riz likes to run it with the Seismic Toss, so it also helps with that. Other than that, it was still a really close game despite that, and I think Dallas could have definitely pulled this one to him, and it was just at the end. I think Dallas, if he tried to be more, I think a bit more calm, but yeah, that's really hard to say, and it's but with the Decidueye, he knew that the Decidueye could beat Necrozma at the end 1v1. But there was still that Donphan, and I think he had 1 or 2 months in the back that could kind of deal with it, but he tried to 1v1 it with the Decidueye, and then when the Decidueye was a bit weakened due to the knockoff Ice Shard, he U-turned out, took some Rocky Helmet damage, and then later on died to the Necrozma. And while if he didn't try to 1v1 the Donphan, he could have had the Decidueye in the back, specifically for the Necrozma. So that was like the main thing about this match that I remembered, and that really was like, okay, he definitely could have won, and maybe he even should have won this match, and that's why I still put him at number 10. But yeah, these are the matches that in the future he kind of has to win.
Yeah, I think he'll definitely be able to bounce back from this. But moving on, we do have, I have him at 10th, you have him at 11th, which is Danza of the Los Angeles Nido-Kings. He also suffered a loss this week. Anything, do you want to touch on it at all?
Yeah, I think this was more like Jolt bringing a really great team for him. Jolt also having a really nice defensive core for Dance's team, which normally there's not many defensive cores to deal with, like the Tapu Lele plus the Mega Alakazam, but the Metagross and the Manibus definitely worked out really well. And there were maybe some questionable calls from Danza, like Spirial in this matchup. I didn't decide do much work. Then he kind of overlooked Talonflame. Talonflame kind of destroyed his team that he brought. So yeah, it was really a bit unfortunate, but maybe just a bit rushed for prep, maybe. But because I think definitely in prep wise, he could definitely have improved this match. Playing wise, yeah, I think he didn't make that many misplays or just bad plays in general. I think he played a clean game, but yeah, it's just the prep, and then when there's on the other side Jolt that really prepped really well, then it came down to that.
Yeah, no, Jolt did prep really well, but I think one thing to highlight too is that the fact that Jolt's pressure was there also limited how much Danza could branch out, because as some of you guys might know if you watched Danza's video, he did have Magic Room Mega Alakazam, which if he was able to set up the Magic Room Alakazam also under potentially Tapu Lele's Psychic terrain, preventing the Bullet Punches from Metagross, that Mega Alakazam would have basically just destroyed the rest of Jolt's team single-handedly. Jolt didn't have like a lot for Magic Room Alakazam late game, so unfortunately though Danza couldn't really set that up because Jolt did enough pressure. But I definitely feel that Danza didn't, like, the reason I had Danza above Razor and Dallas is because I feel out of the three, he didn't necessarily play the worst. I think, he may have prepped the worst, well, maybe like debatable with Razor, but I think, he just made better plays during the game, and he was in it for quite a while, and it was just late game, he just didn't get the chance to do the combos that he needed to do in order to win. So, all three of those guys could honestly just chop and change their positions quite easily. They're all pretty much just in that little cluster from 10th to 12th, I think. We can both agree on that.
Yeah.
And then moving on to the last slot before the top 8, I have the Atlanta Braviaries just missing the cut. I know Trev finally won a game, guys, but I mean, he's still 1 and 2. Like, I'm pretty sure every single person above him is 2-1. So I think, he's sitting in the best position of the 1 and 2s, because if anybody knows how to use momentum after a win to propel themselves, it's Trev. But at the same time, he is still with a negative record, and that's something you have to really look at in perspective. Is that, yeah, he played really well against Seb, and Seb is a very, very, very good opponent, so I'm not taking any of that away from Trev. But at the same time, I look at the 8 battlers that are above Trev, and I don't really see how, like, at this point of the season, I don't see him being ahead of any of them, just because, Trev hasn't, like, it's 1 and 2, which is very different territory for Trev, I guess, in the NPL as well. Like, he started 0-1 before, but he's been able to bounce back and rack up the wins. So this is going to be interesting to see where he goes from here. I'm interested to see, whether it leads to him becoming 2 and 2, or if he goes to 1 and 3, then he could be in a bit of trouble. But you have the Brisbane Braylooms there, so you want to have a chat about them for a bit?
Yeah, I think they pretty much last week they fell down a bit after a rough loss. I had them at 12th. Now they climbed back up to like the 9th spot. And yeah, as I said about when I talked about Razor, there's not much to say about this match. It was just he had the right Altair set against the right team that Razor brought, and yeah, he just clean swept through the team. He got the set with a little bit of help. I believe it was Bird's ID for the set, so also shout out to him, because it did phenomenal work, and it was just a clean win against a lower ranked team, and that's why he is for me just a bit below the Braviaries and the Sunflowers.
That's understandable. That is all good. So that is basically the bottom 8. Now let's go into the next group here, which starts our top 8, and we both have agreed, I think, that right now Riz is not doing too bad. He's 2 and 1. And he didn't necessarily, I think, play bad against Dallas. It was a very even matchup. I think potentially he made a couple of bad plays, but he knew what he had to do. And the important thing that he did really well that I want to highlight is the fact that he preserved his win con in the back, which was his Necrozma. It was definitely probably the best chance that he had of winning this game, I think, on matchup. Although maybe bringing Hooper would have been nice. But I don't know, it's a bit situational. But I think, he really played the Necrozma well. He preserved it late game until a lot of the things that could really threaten it were gone, and was able to take advantage. I think one of the big things that was a factor in this match was also when he was able to get the Toxic off against that Meloetta, because that was a sub-calm by Meloetta, so if it wasn't Toxic by Chandelure, it would get the sub up, which, unless the Chandelure had the Infiltrator, which I don't know if Chandelure still has his ability. I think it still does, but that was just a really nice bring to shut down, sub-calm by Meloetta, which basically destroyed Riz's team at that point. So that was really good for him. But I think he played how he needed to play and took advantage when he needed to take advantage. So I can't really fault him for that. Is there anything else you want to touch on from that battle?
No, I think you covered it pretty much. He just stays where he was last week. He had a nice win. Already talked a lot about this match. Could have definitely gone either way, for sure. Just besides that, I think we'll definitely have to see how Riz will fare against more of the higher ranked teams, because he is there in the top 8, but I don't believe he has faced much of the higher tier guys, so definitely looking forward to those matches.
Definitely. I think next week he has Razor? No. Wait, no. No, he doesn't have Razor. That's Carney has Razor. Riz has Togue. Yeah, so there you go. He gets a high tier opponent, so that will test him for sure. But moving on, we have both reverses of what we had before. I have the Braylooms at 7. You got the Braviaries at 7. You want to talk a little bit about why you've got Trev quite high?
As I just mentioned, like the Sunflowers and the Braylooms, they have one win more than Trev, but they haven't faced much of the higher tier, the higher ranked guys. Trev has now a win over the Feraligators, which is one of the more higher ranked guys. And he brought a lot of great sets, which we already saw in week 1 and 2. And so I definitely like Trev's prep. He is getting really creative really early on, and I think this can throw people off really nicely, because as you saw, the Mimikyu set, it will probably be mentioned in the podcast as one of the sets of the week, but it was just a really nice bring and a really creative bring. And I think he really threw off Seb of his game, and that's why he was able to pull out this win. And I think with this momentum, I think Trev will get far.
Yeah, seriously, guys, if you haven't gone and watched Trev video talking about this Mimikyu set, just go do it. Seriously, go do it, because this is a pretty insane Mimikyu set, and definitely think you should check it out. But moving on, I have the Breloom's up at number 7. I think, 2-1 record, pretty solid. Actually, I think at this point he has one of the best overall percentages of the coaches that aren't named Anthony Zazzo, so that's really nice. The reason why I guess I got him 7th behind a lot of other guys is because I feel that, Abe is doing solid right now. I think, he's playing quite well, but as he said, he hasn't gone up against some of the higher opponents, whereas a lot of the other guys at the top have, and so right now I have him just chilling at 7th, because I still think he's playing well enough to be in the top 8, but I don't know how well he's going to go against the higher tier opponents, which will be coming up soon. But I think his match against Trev next week is going to be a phenomenal one. That'll really be a pivotal game too, because it could put both of them at 2 and 2, or it could have the Brelooms at 3 and 1 and Trev at 1 and 3, which would be a massive gap difference. That's definitely going to be a interesting matchup.
A game changer.
Yeah. But moving on, we have the 6th spot, where we have two very different opinions here, but that is completely understandable. I don't think it would be very much fun if we both agreed all the time.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
For me, I have the San Francisco Reggie Giants there. Okay, this is a bit of a weird one because I technically had Merc ranked higher. Then he pretty much crushed Carney, and I put him lower. Let me kind of try and justify that. I feel that Merc's win this week was not as pivotal as the wins of people like Gypsy or Jolt. Granted that also we had losses for other guys higher up in the rankings. Obviously, the big one that was Seb. But I feel that at this point, Merc played exactly how he needed to play and got the result that he needed to do against Carney, which is great and all. But at the same time, I think Merc's played against two of the very highest of opponents, and then he had that kind of just roll through win on Carney. And what I've seen so far from the top tier opponents is they've really brought it to Merc, and he got a narrow loss and a narrow win. And I guess it's like looking at that situation, as we were talking about the Brelooms, we have to look at how they perform against the top competitors. And right now, he's 1-1 against the top competitors. I feel just that the other guys ahead of him are just a little bit better right now. It's very, very even though. Honestly, between 2nd and 6th, I would say, is very, very just toss a coin almost. They're all very good, and it's very hard to distinguish. But I just feel it was more the results this week against the caliber of opponents they were up against that was the big factor for me. But obviously, you have Jolt at number 6. Why do you have you on there?
No, I wanted indeed to start off the same as you already mentioned. For me, also 2nd to 6th is all so close, and in the next few weeks, I think these spots will be more decisive. But for now, I kept Jolt at the position he was last week, and this was more due to the what happened above him than the match itself, because he put up a solid performance. He had great prep, the prep we expect from Jolt that Jolt has, and he really brought it to Denza. He didn't give it a moment of rest, and he knew what he had to do to win. He knew Komodo could even be a threat late game, but he knew he just needed the high jump kick damage off, and then it would be in range of priority later on. He knew with Healing Wish in the back that Metacross could secure the game, and he just knew from the start that what the plan was, what he needed to do every turn, and he just pulled out a really great win. And normally this would rank him higher, but it was just everyone in this top 6 performed quite well this week. Or if you look at also the results of previous weeks, which is something I take into account, and then I look at last week, he had a bit of a rough loss last week, and that's why he is still number 6. this will probably change if he keeps winning. And yeah, we will just have to see.
Yeah, no, it's very very frustrating because
Yeah.
everybody is uh, so close together. But one team we have agreed on in the 5th spot, just on the verge of getting back into the top 4, where we saw him every single week pretty much last season, is Gypsy and the Sydney Sharpedos, going to a positive record now at 2-1. I think he's really starting to find his mojo again. Everything, like all the pieces of the puzzle, are starting to fit in place for Gypsy. He's made a couple of changes to his team. I think they're changes that he feels a lot more comfortable with. It's a Pokemon that he's a lot more comfortable using overall, and he's just, I don't know what was up with that first week. I don't know if it was just, wasn't used to the style or what was going on or whatever, but I think now he's really understanding the format that he's in. It only took him a couple of games, and he's like pretty much just handling it. He knows what he has to do, and he's getting the results now, and honestly, this is the kind of momentum that can see Gypsy through for a long time. His game against Shardy, he just played a classic Gypsy game. Like, it was honestly, we've seen this so many times in the NPL before. It's just, constant pressure and predictions and just damaging. Like, he played really well late game against that P2, because that P2 could have broken him in half, but he played exactly how he needed to play around it in order to give himself the best chance of winning, and the result speaks for itself. And like, Shardy is a very very good opponent. So I think, of all the coaches, I think that won this week, I think Gypsy's might have been probably one of the most pivotal wins out of all of them. Anything else you want to touch on with that?
Yeah, I totally agree that it was a really big win, and it was also a win much needed for Gypsy. Put him back in the winning mood, and if you just look at this week compared to week 1, I saw the creativity back in the prep. When like the restart, Calm Mind, Psychic, Uxie for the Mega Manicham was a nice counter. Then the Galio, that was a set that he had faced in a previous league in the CFA. I also have been part of that league. It was a toxic substitute protect Galio with Surf just for the damage, but it was really nice to just slowly wear down mons like the Tornadoes, and it was just a classic Gypsy game where he just slowly chipped at the opponent's team, let the toxic damage rack up, and then he can just take it in the late game. And that's how Gypsy likes to play and how he is most comfortable to play. So that was definitely nice to see him doing this week.
Yeah, and I think he's obviously, I think, gonna find his way into the top 4 sooner rather than later, just with the kind of player that he is. But we're gonna move into the top 4. We're gonna start with the 3rd and 4th places here. We do agree on one team being here. I have them at 3rd, you have them at 4th. That is the Florida for Alligators. They did suffer their first loss of the season. I think it was a close game, but I think Seb has kind of had a bit of a cruisy run at the start of the season against Cloud. And then Danza, not saying that they're bad battlers, but I think compared to a couple of the other matchups that other people have had this season, he's definitely had a pretty cruisy run. But this was a bit more of a challenge. Trev is a seasoned veteran, and it was a very good match, but he was outplayed. I wouldn't really say there was any hacks in there at all. I think he just genuinely got outplayed by Trev, and it's definitely back to the drawing board for Seb. I don't necessarily feel that his loss was detrimental enough to move him down too far, but I do feel that he has been put on notice. Like, this is a bit of a reality check to him. He's had a good start to the season. He's now suffered his first loss, and so he's just got to try and now, I guess, bounce back from this. But you have him a little bit lower than that, just like one spot lower. Do you feel this loss was a bit heavier than a lot of others might think?
Yeah, it might have not. Like, his prep was still on point. I saw his prep and it was really good. I think he said there was some rolls with the Zygarde on the top of Finny that made it a bit unfortunate for him, but then later on he just admitted it too. He was a bit rushed. He made a couple of misplays, and that really costed him the game. And at this stage, when you are so high up against the high caliber opponents MPL has, that just might really hurt you. And that one loss like this might end up hurting you, might even cost you a playoff spot. You don't know. So you have to bring your A game every week. And he just this week he just fell short. And I think the guys above him have had a bit closer losses, and have a bit more momentum going into the next few weeks. While he has this really tough loss where he could have potentially won, and I think it's definitely going to hard for him to come back from this.
Yeah, I think, right now he's just chilling on the verge of the top four, but if he keeps performing in this same vein, I guess, where, against the tougher opponents, he's not going to be able to get the result, then he's going to find himself going back to about mid-table. So it's definitely a challenge for Seb, but I think he's more than up for it. But the team that I have currently chilling in fourth is the Toronto Raptors. I think Jolt did play well and he got the result, but I still feel that there is room for improvement. It was a very close game. He did play it pretty much perfect. I wouldn't say perfectly, but he played it pretty darn well. He made the plays that he needed to in order to win. But I think, for Jolt, he's not, completely wrapped with his result. I think, he can definitely play better, and I think it's going to need to play better because his next match, which is going to be probably the match of the week, I can't see any reason why it wouldn't be, is against the Detroit Butterfrees, and that's going to be an insanely good match. So that's definitely going to be a challenge for Jolt. Yeah. I have him in the top four for now, but he's definitely on the edge there, along with Seb. But your other member of the top three, or not top, technically the top three, you have the Arizona Carvanas, who obviously are 2-1 as well. They had a very big win over the Braviaries. How do you feel Toge's going so far?
I think he has climbed up from the tough loss he had in week 2, which I think really hurt him in more mentally than just for the game itself. But he definitely has climbed up with a big 6-0 win. I think he is back in the winning mood. I just have to say, this week he played the match himself and he played it nicely. But he got a lot of help during the prep. He also admitted this. He just was strapped for time. Anthony helped great deal with his team. He built almost all of the sets. He just tweaked a bit, and also the Thunder set was his idea. So also a bit a shout out to Anthony for that. So it was not entirely his own win, but still it's a big momentum, and that's why he is he is in the top 3 because he is in the winning mood. He has a great record, but he just is not there yet. There are still 2 guys above him.
Yeah, that's understandable. I myself, as we flip over to the last slide, I have Toge at second. I feel that of all the coaches that are 2-1, as it stands, I think Toge, right now, matches up the best against most of them. Yes, he had a loss against Moxie in week 2, which is unfortunate. It was a close game, but it was a loss nevertheless. The same way you can look at Toge beating Gypsy, but I feel, Toge so far, he got his vengeance. He did, even when he has other people play, helping his teams, regardless of that, Toge is still quite a good builder. I feel that so far, out of all the coaches that are currently, below the person who is number 1, he's probably the best performing one. I found, his match against Moxie that he lost, he still played quite well during that game, and he probably could have done a bit better, but he still played nicely, and I do see him following up from this next week against Riz, and just continuing to keep performing. I do feel like he is a top 3 battler right now in the league. I think he can continue doing that, and I see no reason why he honestly can't stay there for the rest of the season. But obviously, in second, you have the San Francisco Reggie Giants. Obviously, I can understand why after their big win, but is there anything else you'd like to touch on with Merck?
Yeah, a few things actually. For one, for Merck being second, I think it's mostly due to, if you look at all the games he had, he's now had a big win. He won to Joel, which is one of the top competitors, and then he had a really close 1-0 loss to the Detroit Butterfrees, which we agree on is the number 1 for us. So that's why he is just closely behind him, because he has won his other 2 matches simply. He also had a nice show, but I have to say one thing against with his match against Carney, and a lot of people have been sleeping on Mega Aggron, but Curse Mega Aggron would have totally destroyed him. He didn't even think of it. Suicune was one of the things to deal with it. That's not an answer to it. And yeah, Curse Mega Aggron could have definitely hurt his team a lot. So I didn't really fully agree with his prep, but he still came out with a big win. And I think next week is the week for Merc to really prove himself because he is up against Gypsy King. And I think behind the match of Zazo versus Jolt, that is the second game of the week we will get.
Yeah, definitely going to be exciting. Also, I think the only problem with Curse Mega Aggro in his matchup against Suicune is you have to kind of choose if you're going to run the Curse Rest Talk set, what move you're going to lock yourself into. If it is Iron Head, even at +6, you're not really going to beat fully defensive Rest Talk Suicune, which obviously with pressure will 1v1 Aggron. And if you run something like, say, the Earthquake, I believe Merc had the Togekiss on deck and the Swellow on deck, so it wouldn't have matched up well there too. So I guess that's a case, against that kind of Mega Aggron set. But I still think, I do understand, like, Mega Aggron in itself would have been very good in that matchup, and Merc probably didn't prep against it as well as he could have. But regardless of that, you are right. There was only one team that can be number one right now with a flawless 3-0 record. It was dicey, to say nicely, against Cloud. I think, Anthony could have played a lot better in that game. He made a lot of odd plays. It wasn't, and also he just didn't see as much momentum. But at the end of the day, he realized his win condition was that Gardevoir being able to punch through Cloud's team. He also set up his Registeel in a way that was able to take advantage of Mega Beedrill and eat up that hit, even at +2, and just bop it straight away with the Iron Head. He actually EV'd his Registeel to make sure that it would always 2-hit KO, so that was really important prep on his part. And, despite some of the odd plays, I think Thunderbolt Registeel was a really good bring because it caught Skarmory, it caught Toxapex if he it caught Skarmory if he brought it, but it also was crucial in his victory getting on Toxapex. I think he could have played Cofagrigus a little bit better if he had the rest going for it instead of letting it die to Toxic. Probably would have been GG from there, but I guess, I don't know, maybe he thought he had it in the bag still. But regardless, not really much else I can say. He is 3-0. I think his, if not definitely his biggest challenge is coming up against Joel, although his game against Merc was very bloody close. So we will see what happens. But is there anything else you'd like to touch on with Anthony?
No. It was a really close game against Cloud, one of the lower competitors for now. He still put out the win, and we will just have to see where he goes from here. He is still the only guy that is still currently undefeated. So yeah, he is our number one, but maybe Jolt will dethrone him, maybe not. I think next week is the week to look out for, guys. I think it might be the best week to watch the matches because there are a lot of great matches going on next week.
Yeah, for sure. And if you guys aren't already subscribed to every coach's channel, I don't know what you're doing with your life, go out there and do it. And then go subscribe to all the analysts. Then go, if you have, the main thing though, if you haven't done it already, is subscribe to the MPL channel because we have our podcast to come up. We have other stuff going on. Definitely go check out the podcast because there was a lot of discussion going on when it comes to all the Pokemon that have been traded and redrafted and all that jazz. So definitely go check that out so you can understand everybody's new rosters to an extent. But thank you again, Phalop, for joining me. I think, what I really enjoy is that we kind of have the same opinions, but at the same time we do differ. I think that makes it a lot more entertaining for the viewers. Definitely. And I'm very excited to see how this next week goes because, like you said, there are so many good games going on. It's just an analyst's wet dream, to be fair. So it's going to be very, very exciting to see. But that's going to do it for us, guys. If you did enjoy this video, make sure that you do leave a like. Also, don't forget to comment letting us know how bad we are at our job. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. But anything you'd like to say to finish off?
No, I think definitely next week Power Rankings might be entirely different because there are a lot of great games happening this week and just the rankings might be totally different. We will just have to see. So that's all.
Yep. Well, from us, guys, that's it for us and hope you enjoy and have a good day. Later.